One of the most beautifully handled storylines in Off Campus is Hannah's trauma and the way that it manifests in a deep-seated guilt and assumed responsibility for her. When we meet Hannah, she is post-healing. She has put in the work. She has gone to therapy. She is okay with men again. She is okay with being in relationships and being in her own body and being with herself. But there are still elements of this traumatic experience that have shaped her and the way that she acts around other people and the way that she interacts with the world. Her guilt is one of the biggest ones, and the pressure that she puts on herself because she assumes that things are her responsibility when they aren't. The pop showcase is the absolute biggest example of this, and we see this come out in her conversation with her mother in episode 7. Hannah loses her scholarship because of budget cuts because no one wants to fund the arts, of course, very realistic. And she assumes that because it was her fault that her parents can't afford many basic things anymore, she has to be the one to kind of come up with these funds and to win the pop showcase. And so she puts herself through this kind of like really traumatic experience of having to go back to writing vulnerable music, which she doesn't really want to do at the beginning, in order to pay for her time at Briar University, because she doesn't want to tell her parents that she lost the scholarship because it's her fault. And then we see her in the pop showcase and we see that she blames herself for her inability to write vulnerable music and to write openly about herself because of her traumatic experience. She's annoyed at herself that she can't do this. She also takes it upon herself to take care of Allie when Allie is drinking. Hannah has kind of assumed that she's not going to drink in public. That's something that she's fine with, she's okay with, she just doesn't drink in public. But then she takes on the added extra responsibility of looking after those who do. Even when Garrett makes it explicitly clear that Hannah can drink if she wants to, Hannah's first response is, no, I have to take care of Allie. I have to be the one to take care of Allie. Until Garrett kind of like tries to chip away a little bit at that and says, I will do it. You are safe here. We see Hannah's assumed guilt get chipped away at throughout the entire season. From Garrett first kind of making her environment safer and making her feel that she can trust that nothing bad will happen, to David making it clear that art doesn't have to be painful and that she can create art without having to rip herself open. She doesn't have to assume that that is her responsibility, to Allie knowing all along what happened to Hannah, but waiting for Hannah to feel safe enough to actually express that to her openly, and giving that kind of environment time to breathe and just being a good friend in the meanwhile, to her mother outright asking Hannah, what did you do wrong? Why are you holding all of this guilt inside of you when you did nothing wrong? And I think it's really beautifully done because it's done in both an implicit and explicit way, because Garrett and Allie do it in a way that's gentle and kind of subtle. They don't outright tell Hannah that she's feeling guilty for things that she shouldn't feel guilty for. They are just creating a safer environment. They're the people who are closest to her, who interact with her every day. They just want to make sure that she feels safe. Whereas her mother and David are a bit more confrontational in this, in a good way. They outright tell her this isn't how it is meant to be. You are carrying too much. You are expecting too much of yourself. You are allowed to take a step back. And I think that's the exact right sort of advice that should come from these more authoritative figures. Hannah is post-healing when we meet her. She is a strong, whole person, and her still dealing with the remnants of this doesn't make her any less so. It just makes her human. She had an incredibly traumatic thing happen to her, and it's likely that she's always going to kind of feel this little bit of guilt inside of her. But as long as the people around her keep reminding her and telling her that she's safe and that she doesn't have to do everything herself and that she can kind of be vulnerable and step back a bit and that it's okay to feel this way, then that's all that she needs. It was just really beautiful to see each of the characters kind of force Hannah to confront her guilt and to understand logically why it couldn't be her fault or her responsibility. There are certain things that there was no way that she had to take on. Why was she the one who had to look after Allie? Why was she the one who was at fault for anything that happened when she did everything right? If she has to logically think this through, she can only really come to one conclusion. Beautifully done. Loved it.